and welcome back to yet another video. This week I'm making a costume that started off as an offhand comment on the way to a convention. And that comment was, Anna and I were listening to Sabrina Carpenter in her car on the drive down to the con, and I was like, oh, have you seen that image of the Powerpuff Girls? And you know, like it's a parody on the Powerpuff Girls, except it's Sabrina Carpenter, Charli XCX and Chapel Roan. Right? How cool would that be to do as a cosplay group? Because like, we know 3 people surely. There's 2 of us in the car already. I could do Charli, you could do Sabrina, right? And that's how this started, and that's how I ended up making Charli XCX's outfit that she wore to the 2025 Grammys. Now, out of Charli's entire catalogue of outfits that she's worn, why did I pick that one? Purely because I picked my top favourite outfits of hers, posted a poll up on Instagram, and you sickos voted for me to make this one that was nothing but ruffles. So let's get started. This is the first pattern I'm attempting to use, Vogue V2810. But first, let me make a mock-up. My wig arrived, so I did a little quick makeup test before my shower today. I'm really happy with it. I just, you know, one of those things, couldn't resist. Anyway, mock-up. Here it is. Here is mock-up number 1, and new plan. Gonna go with a new pattern. The reason why, I don't like where the seam lines on this one go. Her ones come to that point and then they start fanning out that way. Whereas this one, they come to that point and then they start fanning towards the middle. So I'm going to find another pattern where they do the right fanning out, because that's going to save me a hell of a lot of work, because I'll have to do a bunch more mock-ups with this one trying to get that fan shape in the right direction, whereas I can just find one that already has it, and then all I have to do is do fitting issues, so you know, like taking it in little bits here and there. So forget everything you saw with this one, and I'm going to try again. So I have finished mock-up number 2 using the new pattern, and so much better, right? We've got all of the seams down the bottom here heading in the right direction. I have already extended the front panel there. All I did there was, instead of making it a flap that snaps in the crotch area, I just drew it straight down instead and cut it into a point. The only issue with this one so far is it's a little too big in the back, but to get the true fit of it, I still need to put some form of boning in it and try it on me first. And because this is just a mock-up, I didn't want to waste any of my actual boning that I'll be putting in this in case it doesn't work, so I have a bunch of cable ties which I'm going to use, which are great for doing mock-ups with, because they give you the same rigidity as boning would, but they're not great for long-term wear because eventually the heat from your body ends up warping them and they don't hold their shape as well. So yeah, let's give it a go with these. Test the fit, see how it goes. But first, let me sew in some boning channels using some twill tape. So here it is, first mock-up try on, and it's too big, so I can still squeeze down a lot through the waist. And yeah, it's really gapey up here, so I'm going to sew up another one, make it just fractionally smaller, try that one on, and then hopefully that one should be good enough that I can start the real thing. But yeah, happy with the shape of it though, just too big. Okay, mock-up number 3, slightly smaller. I think we're good to go. It's still a little bit roomy up the top here, but I think once I add the straps to it, that's going to change the fit of that. But yeah, I'm happy to go ahead with this. I'll trim this bottom bit back a little bit because it's still a bit long there, but this should work, right? Now for the fabrics. For the outer layer, I'm using this grey cotton sateen, and for the lining layer, I couldn't resist, I've got a brat green cotton. And for the stabilising layers, I have drill in green and grey. Alright, let's get started. So first I cut out all of the pattern pieces.
Next, I baste the drill pieces to the lining pieces and the outer pieces. And once that's done, I can start the process of assembling the corset. Then I repeat the process with all of the outer fabric.
Alright, so I've gotten to the point where I have both of the layers done and now they get treated differently. So on the inside layer I need to add a waist tape, and then on the outside layer I need to add bias tape to all of the outside seams so that I can create the boning channels. So I'm going to do that first. First, I need to make the bias tape.
To make the bias tape, I first rule out all of the diagonal lines, and then using my rotary cutter I cut them out. Then I thread all of the strips through my bias tape maker and iron it to create bias tape. In preparation for placing the bias tape, I iron open all of the seams on the inside of the corset. And now I place the bias tape on the outside seams of the corset. Okay, it is now time for me to do some of the most precise sewing I have ever done in my life. Let's hope this works. Stitching as close as I can to the edge of the bias tape, I create the boning channels on the outside of the corset. I think I made a mistake. Looking at the reference photos of the bodysuit, I don't think there is a centre front seam, nor do I think it has bias tape to create the boning channels on that centre front seam. However, my one does have the centre front seam, so I think what they've done is they've just sewn those channels flat through the layers, and that's created their boning channel. But because I've done such a good job of sewing on all the outer boning channels, and I don't particularly want to unpick the centre front panel just to remedy that, what I'm thinking of is using my larger bias tape maker here and making a large bit of bias tape and then covering the centre front and sewing it as if it was just the centre front seam. It is going to give the two like lips on either side of the boning channel, which hers doesn't have, but it means it won't have the centre front dip, and I think that is probably more important at this stage. Bit of a bummer, but oh well, it happens. After finishing off the centre front boning channel, it's now time to add the boning. So I'm using a combination of flat steel boning for the front and very end pieces, and then spiral steel for every other channel. But first, let me add those end caps. Then it's just a matter of threading the bones into the channels. For extra structure, I'm adding a waist tape to the lining layer of the corset, and this is just a wide piece of twill tape which gets sewn directly into the lining layer, and then hook and eyes get added onto either end of it. I then fold the tape out of the way, and now I can add the front and back pieces together. I may have made another mistake. Alright, so what I've done this time is... Well, no, I didn't do it really. What happened was, when I made my mock-ups, I used one single layer of calico fabric. As you saw, my mock-up fit really, really well. I was able to close the gap in the back, no problems, no issues. Now that I've made my actual piece, I have one layer of cotton sateen, 2 layers of cotton drill, and then just a cotton lining fabric. So we've got 4 layers going on there. Putting all those layers together have made it a lot less forgiving, so it doesn't stretch as much as that single layer of calico did. Whatever. It doesn't fit me in the back anymore, which is a bit of a bummer, but I think I have a workaround. Looking at photographs of her actual outfit, it looks like the 2 back panels with the eyelets on it are separate pieces from the corset anyway, so I'm going to be really cheeky and extend those pieces so that it can accommodate for the lack of stretch in the rest of the outfit, which means it isn't going to be entirely accurate because I'm going to have, like, you know, a wider margin where my piece is attached to the back than hers does, but I don't care at this point, you know? I just want to put the costume together and make it work, and it's in the back, so who really cares anyway? Not me. Not really. Anyway, let's make some back panels.
To make the panels, I first draw some large rectangular shapes, cutting it out of both the cotton sateen and drill. After basting the 2 pieces together, I then fold over each of the edges to create the seam allowance. This is where it will attach to the back of the corset. Then I fold it in half again. Then I turn it around inside out and sew the top and bottom edges together. I then trim away the excess fabric and turn it right side out again and attempt to place in a bone right along the crease of that fold we made earlier. I push that bone as hard as it'll go along that crease and then very carefully sew it in place. Once it's sewn in place, I then place an obscene amount of eyelets right next to it. Look, I really wasn't kidding when I said it was a lot of eyelets. So now I place these 2 panels onto the back edge of the corset and sew them in place.
So forgive the really bad lacing, there's nobody else here to help me into it, and so I just had to make do with, you know, what I could. It won't tie in the front like this at all, don't worry. So after putting those extension panels on the back, I don't think it needs it. I still have wiggle room in the sides here, like this can still go a lot tighter. And I'm wondering now, do I unpick them and cut them down shorter and sew it in so that I can get the really nice cinch shape. Like, don't get me wrong, this is lovely how it is, but I feel like I can go those extra 2 inches, you know? I'm gonna go off and contemplate that now, because yeah, this is the easy part of this costume done, believe it or not. And now it's on to skirt ruffles and shoulder ruffles, which as of right now I still don't really know how they've done that, but anyway, yeah. This is done, and you'll see in the final bit whether or not I do take those inches out of the back.
To make the ruffles, I've decided to go with a really soft tulle because I can't afford like the silk chiffon that hers is made from. First I tested how it should actually look, and on one side I have squares cut and on the other side I have ruffles, and you guys were no help when I was trying to figure out which side looked better. So I was forced to make a decision, and I went with ruffles because I thought it would be a bit easier. To make them I just cut a series of wide rectangles and then gathered straight down the middle of them on my sewing machine. And this is me testing how it would look. Happy enough with it, I then moved on to how am I actually going to get these ruffles wearable. And to do that, I just cut another long rectangle and then began layering the ruffles on top of each other. It was at this point I was realising the ruffles looked a little bit limp, so I decided to do one hidden layer of a stiff black tulle.
I've finished doing all of the ruffles and sewing them on, and as you can see it's looking quite like a shower loafer at the moment, and that's because I need to trim it down. But yeah, we've got 5 layers of the grey ruffles I think, and then I have 1 layer of stiff black tulle just to try and give it a little bit more oomph. But yeah, the next step now is to try it on with the bodysuit so I know where it's sitting on me, and then cut it to length. And I made some straps as well for it to snap onto as well. But yeah, I'm going to try this on now so I can see how long it actually needs to be.
I then trimmed back through all the layers just using scissors and eyeballing it really, and making one heck of a mess in the process.
Alrighty, so it's mostly trimmed now, and I've attached it to the front using snaps here. So we got one on there and there. Turns out didn't need straps in the end, it just sits nicely on the shoulder as it is, so that is fantastic. That brings me around to, can you tell the difference between these two sides? So this side is just the straight ruffles, right? And then on this side I've done a layer of the square fabric pinched in the middle there and just draped on the top, and I think that gives the ends a much nicer finish. So now I'm going to do that to this side, and that'll be the whole top part of this costume done, which then means it's time to start the skirt.
Finally, it's time for the skirt. So for the pattern, I'm using this McCall's M8229 pattern. I'm using the same soft grey tulle to make the ruffles from, and for the base of the skirt, I'm using this grey organza. For the waistband, I'll be using some leftover cotton sateen from the Corset, and I'll use some bias tape to finish the skirt edge. First, I cut out the waistband from the cotton sateen. And then I cut out the skirt panels from the organza, making alterations to the front pieces as I go, just by eyeballing it. And that's because the pieces on the original pattern are asymmetric, and I want them to be symmetrical in the middle.
Okay, so now I'm up to the part where I need to be joining all of the skirt panels together, and this is the part I'm not looking forward to the most because I hate working with polyester organza, and that's because it has a horrible tendency to fray. Just by looking at it, it is awful stuff to work with. So, for every seam on this skirt, I will be doing a French seam. It is the best way to sew polyester organza to help minimize the amount of fraying in these seams. I am questioning all of my choices right now. Why did I choose this fabric to make the base of the skirt from? I don't know. I must hate myself or something. Anyway, let's sew those skirt panels together.
Now this was the easy part, sewing together all of the skirt panel pieces using French seams. Once all the pieces were sewn together, I then sewed the darts at the top of the skirt. I then finished the raw edge of the hem of the skirt with bias tape.
So I have finished the skirt base. It's just made from that organza fabric, and I hemmed the raw edge of it using a bias tape, and that has turned out wonderfully. Now, the part I have dreaded the most in this project is finally upon me, and as you can see on this side, I have semi-started it. We are talking about the ruffles. So what I've done here is I have basically cut several strips from the tulle of really long teardrop shapes, and then I gather that down and I'm just going to pin them onto the skirt, get them all looking nice, and then sew it down. Now already I don't think I have enough fabric to get this as full and as fluffy as hers is. There's already 20 meters of fabric in here, and I've ordered another 20 meters of fabric, and I still don't think that's going to be enough. We're just going to do our best to make it look sort of similar to the original while not being as full, and that's okay, or at least that is what I keep telling myself here. Let's get on to making some more ruffles.
After another 20 meters of the tulle arrived, I then began cutting out those long teardrop shapes. Then, starting part way up the drop part of the teardrop, I then gathered the teardrops directly down the middle. I then placed each of these pieces evenly along the bottom edge of the skirt, and then began the complicated task of sewing each of these pieces down, making sure not to catch any of the other pieces in the process. To finish off these teardrop shapes, I then cut a series of skinny rectangles which I also gathered down the middle and added them to the top of each drop. And once I was happy with the amount of ruffles there were, I then added the waistband.
How's the wind going today, Keely?
I love it. I don't care.
that is my recreation of Charli XCX's outfit that she wore to the 2025 Grammys. Now, for someone who doesn't do much like couture sewing and really only makes like pretty basic dresses and stuff when it comes around to it, I think I did okay here. I think my strengths was in the corset area, even though I hadn't really made like a, you know, a long bodysuit corset like that. I usually do the mid ones. I think that turned out really well. I think my shoulder ruffle thing turned out great. I mean, it's not exactly like hers. Then again, none of this outfit's exactly like hers, but you look at it and if you knew the Charli outfit, I'm pretty sure you would have known who I was cosplaying, right? Anyway, it was so much fun to be a part of the Pop Girlies group that we're considering doing it again this year, and so now I'm like, oh gosh, what do I even make this time? Like, there's so many outfits. I'm not touching anything with ruffles again. Like this gold dress she just wore to the premiere of the moment. It's not happening. I don't have the space for it. I love it. It's not happening. Speaking of the moment premiere, actually, these are the sort of reference photos I would have killed for of that corset when I was making it. As you can see, her one doesn't have any cups in it, and you know, I ended up making mine with cups, and this always happens to me. Extra reference photos always come out after the fact, and it changes how I would have done everything, but it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
With all that being said, let me know what you guys thought of this down below. Did you like it? Did you recognize it as Charli? And if you really liked it, maybe consider subscribing. I do a lot of sewing, crafting, and fun related things here on this channel. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!
This is definitely not a song about apples, so that I can put the apple dance at the end of my YouTube video and not get struck with copyright claims. Apple, apple, splitting apples. Wow, scary. Wanna drive. Goodbye.